I'm finally back. Sorry about the delay, but it could not be helped, unfortunately. So I hope that everybody is happy, everybody has made their Christmas list and put it in the... I'm sorry that I'm laughing, but there was just something very funny that happened off camera. So anyway, and I hope that you put your Christmas list in the appropriate place so somebody will actually take a look at it. But above all, with this year that has been rather difficult for a lot of us, I hope that you're happy and healthy. And without further ado, I have a story today, and this one is called The Golden One. When I was a little girl, I think that I have mentioned this before, that I did not have much opportunity to speak to my Hungarian grandmother. She was bedridden. I actually only remember seeing her out of bed once. She suffered from severe arthritis. I mean, her hands were completely deformed. She couldn't feed herself, and back in those days, you know, they didn't have anything like they do now where you have a spoon or a fork with a strap over it. So my aunt, who was taking care of her, would feed her, and grandma was just always, like I said, in bed. And I'm not quite sure that I ever understood the dynamics, nor did my mother, but my aunt had some horrible fear that if I was alone with my grandmother, or I was with my grandmother and my mother, that grandma would tell us something that we were not supposed to know. It was the strangest thing that she was always there. It was very rare that she wasn't sort of hovering. And, you know, I don't know what her deal was about this, but it was very strange. So I really never had any alone time with grandma, except there were 2 times where I spent a little bit of time with her. And I guess somehow my aunt slipped up, and I actually got to spend time with my grandmother. And one of these times she said to me, you know, I've got to tell you about your name, because it's really important that you know this. You know, many years ago, our ancestors came from Mongolia and northern India. The reason that happened is there was a king in those days who wanted more land, and he didn't have enough soldiers. So he sent out some of his soldiers to go and bring back people that they could use in their armies. Well, what happened along the way, some of them made it all the way to Hungary. And because the girls in Hungary were so beautiful, these men did not go back to the mountains of northern India. And those are big, big mountains. They're called Himalayas. And I thought, wow, okay, someday I'm going to have to go see that. Maybe I have relatives living there. But she said a lot of them came to Hungary and they got married to local girls. And this is why my name, before I got married, my last name is Kukura. Kukura is Sanskrit. That is the ancient language from India. And Kukura was a prince. And Kukura as a last name is quite common in Hungary, but it has its origins from the Himalayas. And I thought, boy, she can really make up good stories. I didn't believe this for a minute. And back in the olden days, families, we had a big family, and we would all get together if something special happened, like somebody would die, or a wedding, or when a baby was born. And the family council would get together and decide what maybe would be an appropriate name. So many years ago, in one of those occasions, there was a little baby girl, and they were all looking at the baby and saying, wow, look, she looks so different than us. Everybody, she said, pretty much back then had black hair, and that almost blue-black like your mother, and dark, dark, beautiful, big, big eyes that looked like big pieces of licorice, or maybe green, but their skin was like an olive color. But this little baby had bright green eyes, but much lighter hair, and she didn't have that chocolate colored, light chocolate colored skin. So somebody said, you know, this is very auspicious. This is a very special baby. Yes, and we are going to call her Aranka because that means the golden one. And from now on, every time somebody has a baby girl, first baby girl has to be named Aranka. Every time. This is very important. This has to happen. So she said, you know, I think of myself as a modern woman. I really didn't think that I wanted to continue this. Seemed ridiculous, you know, always the same name. So she said, when I had my first daughter, it's before I married your grandfather. I didn't name her that. Then I married Shandor, your grandfather, and I had a girl, and then I had another girl, and I didn't name them Aranka. And Shandor said, that's it. We have now become very, very rich. I mean, this is like a small empire. I need a son. And he needs to inherit this. And you have got to stop this thing about wanting to be modern and not wanting to do traditions. The next time you're pregnant, if that's a girl again, you have got to name her Aranka, because I'm telling you, you had better have a boy. I need a boy. So my grandmother said, well, okay, I got pregnant again. And guess what? Yeah, it was another girl. And it's your mother. And so I named her Aranka. And then 7 years later, I got pregnant again. And that is your Uncle Ferenc. And so Chandra said, see, I told you. You know, you shouldn't just decide that you're not going to do these. This is important. This is part of your history. And, you know, there is a reason for this. And she said, you know, I don't know whether that's true or not, but so if you get married someday and you have children, and I hope you will, you know, you should really name a little girl Aranka. I think you should, because that's family tradition now. And I said, okay, Grandma, if I ever have children. She said, what do you mean by that, if you ever have children? I said, well, first I have to go see who those people are that live there in Mongolia. And you said in the Himalayas. Maybe we have relatives there. And she said, well, that would be hard to figure out because this was hundreds of years ago. But if you want to go see everything, do it before you get married and have children. I'm telling you right now, once you get married and you have children, that's it. Forget it. Then for the next 20 or 30 years, you know, then you have grandchildren and then you don't want to go anymore. Of course, I listened to that, and some of you know that, yeah, that's exactly what I did. So I was able to go and see all these places, most of them that I wanted to see. So while we were alone, she said, I want you to open that big armoire. On the bottom, at the back, there is this little bag, and I want you to take this out. And I said, oh, are you sure? Am I not going to get in trouble? She said, no, because I'm telling you, I want you to do that. And it's something that belongs to me. It is mine, and I'm giving it to you now. And I said, well, I don't know. Am I not going to get in trouble? She said, no, don't worry about it. Just get the bag. So it was just an unassuming little cloth bag. It looked like an old dress was made into a bag. And I took it out, and she said, take out what's in it. And I couldn't figure out what it was. She said, well, come on, go ahead, take it out, take it out. And after I took it out, it was a black velvet cape. It had a big hood, and it was lined in purple. And she said, you know, that's special, don't you? And I said, well, yeah, what's this fabric? And she said, well, this soft fabric on the outside, that's velvet, and the inside is silk. And I said, well, whose was that? And she said, that was mine. Shandor, your grandfather, had that made for me in Madrid because we used to go to the opera, and this was my opera cape. And I want you to have this. And someday, but I want you to wait, maybe when you're 18 or maybe older, there is a secret in it. But I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you'll be able to figure it out then. So it's yours, and just roll it back up and put it back in the bag. Well, then my aunt came in, and she had been in the kitchen with my mother, and she got very upset. She said, what are you doing? You're stealing something. What is wrong with you? And my grandmother said, okay, you're going to have to, what is this? Something flying around my nose. She said, you're going to have to quit this. She's stealing nothing. I told her to take that, and I'm giving it to her. And my aunt said, why? They don't have any money. They can't use this for anything. I know what that is. That's your velvet cape. They don't have money to go to the opera or to the theater. And my grandmother said, no, I know that. But they're not always going to be poor. And someday, I know, little Aranka is going to be going to the opera and to the theater because I know that she likes classical music and I know she likes the theater. My aunt said, that's ridiculous. How would you know that? She's only what? How old are you now? What, 11, 12? You don't even know what that stuff is. And my grandmother said, don't be so hateful. I know for a fact that when she is an adult, she will see the world because that's what she wants to do. And I know in my heart, she likes poetry and she likes famous authors. She likes to read. She will be using this. So this is it. I'm no longer discussing this. I want you to have this. I want you to take it and come here. Give your grandma a big hug and a kiss. Well, my aunt was in a snit over it. She was telling my mother how I must have talked grandma into this, and this is ridiculous. You can't come here and take our stuff. And my mother just said, look, Aranka would never talk her into anything. She's not like that. And I'm sorry you feel that way, but, you know, our mother wanted Aranka to have it. And so, you know, you need to just be quiet and leave it alone. Anyway, so yes, so I had this beautiful, well, it was beautiful, but I mean, it was old, you know, it'd been around. You could tell the seams were not that perfect anymore, but to me, it was precious because that was the only thing that I had ever been given by my Hungarian grandmother. So when I went to England, I actually left it with my mom. But then when I emigrated to the United States, I decided that I would take it. And once I was in the US, I thought, okay, I got to figure out what's the deal? Why is there something special? And what would it be? So I looked on the inside. It had pockets and had a very wide hem. And so I thought, well, it could only be something in the hem. So I went along and I felt and felt. And then I realized they were all little pockets. So I opened the hem and there were notes. And it said, sold for food, and then it gave a date. And that was the ruby ring. And there were all these little notes in the sewn in, where they apparently had sold fine jewelry when they had lost everything and they had nothing to eat. And then I got to one little pocket and I thought, oh my God, this feels more than a little piece of paper. And I opened it up and it was this old silk bag, and I opened it and it had a little gold brooch that looked like a little bunch of flowers. And they were little rubies and sapphires and emeralds and diamonds. I mean, I didn't know, it looked like glass to me. I didn't know it was real. And then it had a little note and it said, with love from your Hungarian grandmother, shall you always have flowers. I was just stunned. I mean, it was just the most amazing thing. I had no idea that there would be anything in it. And I just realized how sweet she was and how considerate that she had given that to me. So I don't have the cape anymore because I had actually, my mother and I, when my mother came to the United States, at one point, I took her to the theater in Kansas City, Missouri, and we had taken the cape because I would say, Mama, okay, you wear it for an hour and then I get to wear it. And it was at her house. And 2 days later, her house burned down. So unfortunately, it got destroyed. But I still have the little brooch, which is really precious to me. And to find out that Grandma didn't make up all this stuff about the name Kukura and my name. I used to think she made all this up, but I found out that no, Aranka really means the golden one, and it has been in our family for almost 300 years. So that's my story for today, and I want everybody to have a very Merry Christmas, and I guess I'll see you next year. Love you.